Writer for the Heritage Foundation and visiting fellow for the Independent Women's Forum, Kelsey Bolar, and member of the Virginia House of Delegates, Mark Levine. Thank you both for joining us this morning. Appreciate it.
Good morning.
So as we begin, since we're going to be talking about what Biden has had to say, let's listen to some of what he said on China and Russia.
China is going to eat our lunch? Come on, man.
Governor Romney's answer, I thought, was incredibly revealing. He acts like he thinks the Cold War is still on. Russia is still our major adversary. I don't know where he's been.
China, Russia, don't worry about it, Kelsey. Don't worry about it.
Right. Those recent comments on China were quite bizarre, especially given the tough trade negotiations that are underway right now. But look, Joe Biden's foreign policy track record should absolutely be front and center on his campaign. And you don't have to go back 4 decades to actually see how problematic it is. Everything that President Trump is being criticized for by Democrats really bubbles down to rhetoric. They don't like Trump's rhetoric when it comes to Russia. But the fact of the matter, as Gates points out, is the Trump administration has been far tougher on Russia than any other administration in the past, including sanctions. And then if you look what the Obama administration's policy was towards Russia, where Joe Biden served as vice president, Crimea was taken over, and the Russia meddling actually began under the Obama administration. They were warned about that and did nothing. We have Ukraine, too. So that's just one example where I think his foreign policy track record is going to be center stage in the debate here.
You know, Mark, you're laughing, but former Assistant Secretary of State for President George W. Bush was on Fox, Robert Charles, and he pointed out that, in terms of Biden's foreign policy failures, they range from opposition to military programs that brought down the Soviet Union to opposing the Osama bin Laden raid.
So when I found out the topic today, I read the entire transcript of the Face the Nation interview with Robert Gates. And in it, he criticizes Donald Trump strongly on China, on Russia, on Iran, on North Korea, on Venezuela.
But we're not talking about President Trump. We're talking about Biden.
But when you're talking about Russia and what Gates says about Russia, he doesn't say anything about Biden with Russia. In fact, he says he agrees with Biden on Libya. He agrees with Biden on Egypt. What he says on Russia is that Donald Trump is trying to prevent Congress from sanctioning Russia because he knows Russia helped him in the election and he doesn't want to stop them from helping them again. That's the bombshell here that you didn't say from the interview.
But our topic
and it's fascinating to read that.
Okay, but our topic, let's go back to Biden and his foreign policy and whether or not he'll be held accountable for any of his foreign policy blunders, which Gates did point out. He also talked about some of the military mistakes that he's made. What about that?
What Gates says is that in his memoir of 2015, he criticizes Biden on several things. And then the interviewer asks if he stands by that statement. It's interesting. Read the interview. He says, I don't know. I think I stand by that statement. And then he talks about he agreed with Biden on Libya. He agreed with Biden on Egypt. He disagreed with him with some technical points on Afghanistan. Look, Gates is a Republican, but he's a Republican who says he doesn't know if he can support Donald Trump as the Republican nominee because he lays out all of Donald Trump's foreign policy mistakes. So I really think you need to read the entire Face the Nation interview to get a full context of what Gates believes.
So, Kelsey, just the final word on Biden, since that's what we are talking about in terms of his foreign policy.
Again, I think that his foreign policy, he served as chairman of the Foreign Policy Committee in the Senate. He ran for president on his foreign policy platform, and now he's touting it once again. And he really needs to ask, name a success on the foreign policy platform, the world stage that you and the Obama administration actually had. Gates was criticizing him looking back for decades. Again, we don't need to look back for decades. Just look at the Obama administration compared to where we are now.
What about dismissing China? I mean, do you think that any investigation is forthcoming in terms of Hunter Biden and how he has profited from China specifically? Kelsey?
I think it absolutely should be investigated. If he's running for president, his records, his profits in that matter should be investigated, especially when he makes these strange comments suggesting that China's not competition right now.
And Mark, I'll give you this. I mean, he did say that at least Biden does have foreign policy experience, and he hasn't heard a lot, if anything, from any of the other potential Democratic candidates who are running in terms of foreign policy at all. We're out of time. Sorry about that.
He also said Biden had integrity, which made a distinction.
All right. Thank you both for joining us this morning.